Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Strange. Tonight I'm bringing you 4 true stories, real encounters with strangers that crossed the line from unusual to absolutely terrifying. These stories were submitted by real people who experienced something they'll never forget. Names and some details have been changed to protect their privacy. If you are home alone right now, you might want to turn on a light. Let's begin. The Smiling Man. This first story takes place in Seattle back in 2012. It was submitted by someone we'll call Marcus. Marcus worked late shifts at a coffee shop downtown. Most nights he'd got off around 1 a.m. and walked a few blocks back to his apartment. The neighborhood was relatively safe though. Well lit, he made that walk dozens of times without incident. But one night in October, that changed. It was Tuesday. Marcus remembers because Tuesdays were always dead at the shop, which meant closing duties went faster than usual. He clocked out at 12:47 a.m., said goodnight to his manager, and stepped out into the cool autumn air. The street was empty, not unusual for that time of night. Marcus pulled his jacket tighter and started walking. He made it about half a block when he noticed something in the distance. A man, standing under a streetlight about 200 feet ahead. At first, Marcus didn't think much of it. Seattle's a city. People are out at all hours. But as Marcus got closer, something felt off. The man wasn't moving. He was just standing there, perfectly still, facing Marcus's direction. And he was smiling. Even from that distance, Marcus could see it, a wide, unnatural smile. Marcus slowed his pace down. The street was long and straight. There were other routes he could take to get home, but they had another 10 minutes to his walk. He was tired. He just wanted to get home. So he kept walking. As the distance between them closed, Marcus got a better look at the man. He was tall, maybe 6'3" at most, wearing a long dark coat that went down to his knees. His arms hung stiffly at his sides, and that smile never moved. Marcus crossed to the other side of the street. The man's head turned slowly to follow him, but his body stayed facing forward, just his head, rotating like it was on a swivel. That's when Marcus's heart started pounding. He picked up his pace, not running, not yet. Just walking faster, trying to seem casual, trying not to show fear. Every instinct screamed at him to look back to see if the man was following him, but he kept his eyes forward. Marcus made it another block. The street curved slightly, and for a moment, he couldn't see that man anymore. He risked a glance over his shoulder. The man was gone. Relief flooded him. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe the guy was drunk or high, or just some weirdo who got his kicks from making people uncomfortable. Marcus laughed nervously to himself and continued walking. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Not behind him, ahead of him. Marcus looked up and froze. The man was standing in the middle of the sidewalk, 20 feet in front of him. Same position, same smile, like he teleported. That's when Marcus ran away. He didn't think, he just bolted, turned around and sprinted back the way he come, his shoes slapping against the pavement, his breath coming in a ragged gasp. He didn't look back, didn't stop, just ran until his lungs burned and his legs felt like they might give out. When he finally slowed down, he was 6 blocks away in front of a 24-hour convenience store. Fluorescent lights, safety, and people. Marcus stood there for about 20 minutes, hands on his knees, trying to catch his breath. When he finally felt brave enough, he called a taxi to take him the rest of the way home. He never saw the smiling man again, but sometimes, late at night when Marcus is walking home, he still checks over his shoulder, just in case. This next story comes from a young woman in New Hampshire. She lived in what she thought was a quiet, safe apartment building, but she was wrong. Dr. Ramsey. We'll call her Jessica. She was a 23-year-old fresh out of college working her first real job. She just moved into a small one-bedroom apartment converted Victorian house. The kind of place where creaky floors and radiators that clanked at night. There were only 4 units in this building. Jessica lived on the 2nd floor, but below her was an elderly couple who she rarely saw. Across the hall was a guy in his 30s who worked odd hours. And upstairs on the 3rd floor lived Dr. Ramsey. That's what he called himself, Dr. Ramsey. Jessica first met him about a week after moving in. She was carrying groceries up the stairs when he appeared at the top landing, 50s, maybe early 60s years old, thin, dressed in a sweater vest and slacks, like he was headed to teach a college class. "Hello," he said in a voice that was a bit too loud. "You must be the lieutenant. I'm Dr. Ramsey. I live upstairs." Jessica smiled politely. "Nice to meet you. I'm Jessica." "Jessica," he repeated, like he was testing how it felt to say her name. "What a lovely name. What do you do, Jessica?" She told him she worked in marketing. He nodded enthusiastically, asked a few more questions. Where she went to school, where she grew up, if she had a family in the area. The conversation maybe lasted 5 minutes, but it felt longer. There was something about the way he stood too close, the way his eyes didn't blink often enough. Jessica made an excuse about her ice cream melting and retreated to her apartment. That should have been the end of it, but Dr. Ramsey had other ideas. The next day, Jessica found a note slipped under her door, handwritten in neat cursive. "Welcome to the building, Jessica. If you ever need anything, I'm just upstairs." Signed Dr. Ramsey. Weird, but not threatening. She threw it away. 2 days later, another note. This one said, "I noticed you came home late last night. I hope everything's okay. Remember, I'm always here if you need to talk." Signed Dr. Ramsey. Jessica's stomach turned. How did he know what time she came home? Was he watching? She mentioned it to a guy across the hall. He just shrugged. "Yeah, Ramsey's a little odd. He's harmless though, been here for years." Jessica wanted to believe that. The notes kept coming once a week, then twice a week, always slipped under her door while she was at work. They got increasingly personal. Comments about what she was wearing, questions about whether she was seeing anyone, offers to keep her company if she was lonely. Jessica stopped answering her door if she heard footsteps in the hallway. She started taking different routes home from work, hoping to avoid running into him, but somehow he always knew when she was there. One night, around 11 p.m., there was a knock at her door. Jessica looked through the peephole. Dr. Ramsey standing in the hallway. Jessica looked through her peephole. Dr. Ramsey standing in the hallway, holding what looked like a plate of cookies. She didn't answer. He knocked again. "Jessica, I know you're home. I can see your light under the door." Her heart hammered at her chest. She stayed silent. "I made these for you," he continued. His voice muffled through the door. "I thought we could have tea, get to know each other better." Still, she said nothing. After what felt like an eternity, she heard his footsteps retreat up the stairs. Jessica didn't sleep that night. She sat on her couch staring at the door, jumping at every sound. The next morning, the plate of cookies was sitting outside her door. She didn't touch them, but left them there for 2 days until they disappeared, presumably taken back by Dr. Ramsey. Things escalated after that, though. Jessica started hearing footsteps above her apartment at odd hours, 2, 3 in the morning, pacing back and forth directly above her bedroom. Then she started getting phone calls on her cell phone from numbers she didn't recognize. When she answered, there'd be silence on the other end. Just breathing. She blocked each number, but new ones kept calling. One evening, Jessica came home to find her apartment door slightly ajar. She was certain she locked it. She always locked it. Heart racing, she pushed the door open slowly. Everything looked normal, nothing out of place. But there was a smell. A cologne. The same cologne Dr. Ramsey always wear. He's been inside her apartment. That was it. Jessica called the police. The officer who showed up was sympathetic but unhelpful. There was no proof Dr. Ramsey had entered her apartment, no signs of forced entry. The notes were concerning, but not explicitly threatening. Unless he did something overly illegal, there wasn't much they could do. They suggested she get a restraining order. Jessica started looking for a new apartment that night. 2 weeks later, she moved out, broke her lease early, paid the penalty, and she did not care at all. She just needed to get away from that building, away from Dr. Ramsey. On her last day, as she was loading the final blocks into her car, she looked up at the third-floor window. Dr. Ramsey was just standing there, watching her, that same too-wide smile on his face. He raised one hand and waved. Jessica got in her car and drove away. She never went back. To this day, she wonders if Dr. Ramsey was even really a doctor. And she wonders if the new tenant in her old apartment is getting notes slipped under her door. Our third story takes place in a hotel room in Florida. It's a reminder that sometimes the scariest things aren't what we see, it's what we don't see till it's too late. The Woman in the Mirror. The story was submitted by a woman named Rachel. She was traveling for work, stayed at a budget hotel just off the interstate in Central Florida. She stayed in dozens of hotels just like it. Generic, clean enough, the kind of place where you don't think twice about safety because it's just bland. Forgettable. Rachel checked in around 8 p.m. The clerk barely looked up from his phone as he handed her the key card. Room 237, second floor. The room was exactly what she expected. 2 double beds, a desk, a TV bolted to the wall. The bathroom was small but functional. Everything smelled faintly of industrial cleaner. Rachel dropped her bag, ordered takeout, and settled in for the night. She had a presentation in the morning. She needed to review her notes, get a good night's sleep, and be ready to perform. Around 10 p.m., she brushed her teeth and got ready for bed. She stood at the bathroom sink, toothbrush in hand, staring at her reflection in the mirror above the vanity. That's when she noticed it. The mirror wasn't quite flush with the wall. There was a gap, barely noticeable, maybe 1/4 inch, like someone had pulled it away from the wall just slightly and hadn't pushed it back into place. Rachel frowned. She reached around and pressed on the mirror's edge. It had moved. Not much. Just a little, like it was hinged on one side. Curious, Rachel pulled the mirror towards her. It swung open like a door. Behind it was a hole in the wall, and behind that, another room. Rachel's blood went cold. She was staring directly into the bathroom of the room next door. She could see their sink, their toilet, the edge of their shower curtain. Someone had cut a hole in the wall, covered it with the mirror, and they could swing it open any time they wanted. Rachel slammed the mirror shut. Her hands were shaking. She grabbed her phone and called the front desk. No answer. She tried 3 times. Nothing. Panic rising, Rachel shoved the desk chair against the bathroom door. Then she pushed one of the beds against the main door to the hallway. She turned on every light in the room. She didn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. The air conditioner kicking on. Footsteps in the hallway. Pipes creaking in the walls. Around 2 a.m., she heard it. A faint sound like something scraping against drywall. It was coming from the bathroom. Rachel stood frozen, stared at the bathroom door. The chair she wedged under the knob was still in place, but the sound continued. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Something was on the other side of the mirror. She grabbed her car keys and her purse and ran. Didn't check out, didn't wait for morning, just ran down the stairs across the parking lot and she got in her car. She drove for about 2 hours straight before she felt safe enough to stop at a different hotel. The next day, Rachel called the hotel to report what she found. The manager seemed annoyed, claimed they'd looked into it, asked if she wanted to come back to retrieve the belongings she left behind. Rachel told them to throw everything away. She never did find out who was in the room next door, never found out how long the hole has been there, never found out how many people had been watched while they were showering, changed clothes, or slept in that room. All she knows is that now, whenever she stays in a hotel, she checks the mirrors. She presses on them, looks for gaps, makes sure they're solid, and if they're not, she leaves. Our final story is a reminder that danger doesn't always come from strangers in dark alleys. Sometimes it happens in broad daylight, in a crowded parking lot, with witnesses all around. The parking lot. This story comes from a mother in California. We'll call her Amy. She had a 3-year-old daughter. It was Sunday afternoon. Amy was grocery shopping at a large chain supermarket, the kind with the huge parking lots and constant crowds. She finished her shopping, loaded her groceries into her car, and buckled her daughter into the car seat. That's when a woman approached. She was middle-aged, well-dressed, carrying a designer purse. She had a friendly smile as well. "Excuse me," the woman said, leaning close to Amy's car window. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm visiting from out of town and I completely lost. Could you help me with directions?" Amy hesitated. Something felt off, but she couldn't put her finger on what. The woman seemed harmless enough, though. Sure," Amy said. "Where are you trying to go?" The woman pulled out her phone, showing Amy an address. "I've been driving around for 20 minutes. My GPS isn't working." Amy glanced at an address. It was only a few miles away. She started giving directions, pointed which way the woman would turn out of the parking lot. As she spoke, Amy noticed something. The woman kept glancing towards Amy's daughter in the back seat. "Such a beautiful little girl," the woman said, interrupting Amy mid-sentence. "How old is she?" 3, Amy said. Her instincts were screaming now. 3, the woman repeated. Perfect age. That's when Amy saw it. Another woman, younger, standing about 15 feet away, watching them, not shopping, not walking to a car, just watching. Amy's heart started pounding. "I'm sorry," Amy said quickly. "I need to go." She reached for her car door, but the older woman stepped closer, blocking her. "Wait, I still don't understand the directions. Could you just—" "I really need to go." Amy said more firmly. The older woman's smile faltered. Just for a second, then it returned, wider than before. Of course, thank you for your help. She stepped back. Amy got her car, locked the doors immediately, and looked in her rear view mirror. The two women were talking to each other, looking at her car, looking at her license plate. Amy didn't wait. She put the car in reverse and got out of there as fast as she could. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. When she got home, she immediately reported it to the police, described the woman, described their behavior. The officer told her she'd done the right thing. Said there has been several reports recently of women working in pairs, distracting parents in parking lots while their partner grabbed children from cars or strollers. Amy had almost fallen for it. If she followed that woman to her car to show her the directions, if she turned her back for even 10 seconds, her daughter could have been gone. Now, Amy never talks to strangers in parking lots, never. No matter how friendly they seem, no matter how lost they claim to be, she tells her daughter the same thing. If someone you don't know tries to talk to you, run, scream, make noise, don't be polite, and don't be nice. Because sometimes, the most dangerous people are the ones who seem the most normal. Those were 4 true stories, real encounters with strangers that will stay with these people for the rest of their lives. If you had a similar experience or any encounters that still haunt you, I want to hear it. You can email your story to the address in the description below. If I feature your story in the future video, I'll keep your identity completely anonymous. Thank you for watching. Stay aware, stay safe, and remember, not everyone who smiles at you is friendly. My name is So Strange. Until next time.